Hi, good afternoon to our audience in China, and welcome to everyone from listening from around the world. My name is Suwei Jiang. I'm a committee member of the Bristol University Alumni Committee, and I'm delighted to be the host of this fifth Bristol Connects live event. So this online series will provide you with career insights from fellow graduates and give you the opportunity to ask questions. And today's event is very much focused on top accounting firms. So myself, Weiwei Hu, and Kevin Chan are here today to provide you with our career experience and insights, and also to answer any of your questions. But first of all, let me start with some housekeeping points. You can use the Q&A tab down the bottom of your Zoom panel. You can see that. So please feel free to pop your questions as we go along in that tab, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the presentation. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible during the allotted time, but if we do run out of time, please do email your questions to alumni-events@bristol.ac.uk, and then we will endeavor to answer those questions through email back to you. Please only use the Q&A tab to ask questions. If you've got any comments or technical questions, please do email us. The chat function, just so that you know, is disabled on this event. And the views and opinions that the three of us are going to be talking about today only represent our own opinions, so we're not representing our respective organizations here today. On the career advice front, I'm delighted I'm also joined by Stella Wang, the University of Bristol International Graduate Careers Office, and also Carl Anton from the School of Management Employability Advisor. So they will be able to answer any careers related questions during the session. So please do submit your questions to them as well on the Q&A tab. And just to remind you, this session is recorded, and then you will receive an email link to the recording after the presentation today. If you have any technical issues during the presentation, try exiting the email link and then rejoin the Zoom meeting. Hopefully that will help you to resolve the issues there. But if you continue to experience problems, then please do email us at alumni-events@bristol.ac.uk. So those are the sort of housekeeping points. Delighted to have you here today. So perhaps I can kick off just maybe with a bit of introduction of myself, and then I'll hand over to Weiwei and then Kevin afterwards before we move on to Q&A. So as I said at the beginning, my name is Suwei Jiang. I am a partner in PwC UK. So I lead our China business group within the UK firm here. So that's a cross-sector and a cross-service line markets group. So essentially, my group is in charge of all businesses that we do, supporting our clients coming in and out of China. So working with Chinese clients coming into the UK, across Europe as well, and also working with a lot of the UK companies going into China. So I graduated from Bristol quite a long time ago. So I was in Bristol University between 96 and 98. So I did my MBA in international business at Bristol University. And then a year before that, I came to the UK to study my last year of university degree. So I grew up in China and went to university in Guangzhou. Since graduating from the university, I joined PwC in 98, so August 98. So it was my first job, and it continues to be my only job during my 22 years of career so far. But I did many different things within the 22 years I have been with the firm. So I joined the firm as graduate to study the chartered accountancy qualification. So I'm an ACA and an audit partner by background. So I grew up in the audit part of our practice. For the first 10 years, roughly 10 years of my career, I was doing audit of FTSE 100 businesses in the UK. So did quite a number of large group audits. Some of those are probably familiar with you. So groups like Unilever, GSK. So I did quite a number of years of their group audit and got to know the businesses really well. And then during that time, I also did quite a lot of M&A transactions, because those were the years or the days when the audit part of the practice can still do quite a lot of non-statutory audit work. So I did quite a lot of those. I did quite a number of IPO transactions. I also did quite a lot of work back in China as well. So I was part of the team who helped PetroChina and Bank of China to list in Hong Kong in those early years where Chinese companies were trying to explore international capital markets. Then around 14 years ago, I was asked by the firm here in the UK to set up the China Business Group, which I am now leading. So we started basically from scratch to establish that group. And then it is now a 30 million plus business that we run. And then I gradually moved away from full-time audit, but doing quite a lot of the consulting and advisory type of work. Currently, not only I lead the UK China Business Group, I also lead our China Business Network across Europe. So that's with 40 countries. So I'm responsible also for the China teams in those countries as well. And in addition to that, I am also part of the UK firm's public sector consulting leadership team. So I do quite a lot of work with the UK government. So FCDO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, DIT, Department for International Trade. So I do quite a lot of their work, both China related and non-China related. So I do quite a lot of the trade and investment strategy work for DIT, say, for example. That's across the board for the UK. So I really enjoy that aspect of it because it's very, very different to working with private sector companies. And I do quite a lot of roles at a global level, looking at innovation we can introduce to the services we do in the market, and then leading some of those initiatives as well. So that's essentially what I do. And I have to say, being a Chinese and also a female as well, and a lot of people ask me questions about being a sort of minority in the firm and growing up in the UK firm here. How did you feel? And I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed the experience I've had within PwC. I've never felt that I was at a disadvantage being Chinese and being female. And on the contrary, I think I was able to really play to my strengths and use the skill set I have, which are unique, to bring value to the firm and to my clients, and also nurture the people we have within the firm. So just on that point, just to mention, we have over 600 Chinese employees in our UK firm here, mostly in London, but then quite a few also in the region as well. So we have a very vibrant China Interest Group, which is a social group, which has most of them in that sort of mix. So helping our Chinese employees to sort of grow, and then being able to leverage the opportunities as I did or have been doing for the last 22 years. So on that note, I'll hand over to Weiwei to introduce herself. Weiwei.
Thanks, Suwei. Great to see you all virtually. So quick introduction of myself. My name is Weiwei Hu. I work for Ernst & Young UK firm. I did an MSc in University of Bristol back in 2009 in accounting, finance and management. Then spent the last 10 years of my career in Big Four firms. So I start in audit with so I'm ACA qualified. Spent the first 3 years as a training contract in audit. After that, I moved to the data analytics side of Ernst & Young and spent a few years there. I spent the last 4 to 5 years mainly in the startup and technology investment side, advising our corporate client and VC clients on tech ecosystem in Europe and their investment in fast-growing business and startup engagement also. I currently lead a team focused on the London tech scene. We sponsor a lot of tech events and work closely with DIT, for example, on London Tech Week, Tech Rocket Ship Awards, and events like that, which is a really exciting area to be in. And also, concur on Suwei's point, being a Chinese and a female in the UK and spend my career wholly in the UK. At any stage of my career, I never see that as a disadvantage, as a really fair game, as long as you're good at your job, which I'm happy, to explain further and take any specific question on that front. And thanks.
Great, thank you, Weiwei, for that introduction. Kevin, Kevin is actually in Shanghai. So Kevin.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Suwei. Thank you, Weiwei. Very impressive background, Suwei, by the way. I was thinking about myself when I was listening to your introduction. Now, I'm Kevin Chan. I am originally from Hong Kong, China. I came to the UK in 1991, actually. I came to the UK in 1991 and started my secondary education as well as my university life. I graduated from Bristol University in 2001. So I'm glad, Suwei, that you're a bit more senior than I am. As soon as I graduated, studying economics and accounting with German, which I really love, by the way, I started my career with Ernst & Young, where Weiwei is right now. So I started my career actually in the UK. I worked in the UK for 7 years before I so-called repatriated back to the PRC. Now, to cut the long story short, because I do have a lot of things to share, but to cut the long story short, I came back to China to work full-time now for Grant Thornton, which is also, well, a non-Big Four firm, but a reasonably sized firm, popularly ranked number 5 or 6, maybe, Suwei, maybe you have other ideas, but we are also a global firm. In China, when I came to work for GT, I was already working in the transaction advisory side of things, so supporting M&A transaction by providing financial due diligence, as well as organizing our tax team to perform the tax side of the due diligence. Sometimes I also work on valuation side to support investment projects. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, just to share with the group about kind of my growth after I got back to China in 2008. I joined GT China at that time, leaving GT UK as a transaction manager, coming back some 12, 13 years ago. Our firm in China was approximately 600 people nationwide in PLC China. Fast forwarding the clock to today, obviously with my certain little bit of contribution, our firm right now in the PLC is 6,000 people with 26 offices, and really a full service firm covering audit, tax, and advisory. And I still remain today a transactions partner, supporting private equity firms, venture capital firms, as well as listed companies who are pursuing M&A transaction. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'll leave more time for Q&A, and I love to share more with you. I really love sharing my experiences, and I have a lot to thank my alma mater. So Bristol University has done a lot of great things for me, and I like to kind of reciprocate this kind of help to recent graduates of Bristol University. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And actually, we've got some live questions coming through. But before we move on to that, maybe I'll use my host privilege to actually ask you a question as a starting point. Because I guess, you started your career in the UK and then you moved back to China. What's your experience being like, I think, working, because both Weiwei and I guess, have full-time working experience in the UK, although, I travel basically, well, before COVID on a monthly basis between here and China, but that's not the same as having a sort of full-time working experience in China. So I mean, what's the main difference you felt, between here in the UK and China?
Well, because I started my career in the UK, I always have this kind of memory, which I cherish very much. The stuff that I learned from working for a UK firm. The training structure was fantastic. I had many friends and many mentors looking after me, and the pace of life. I wouldn't say it was slow. In our business, Suwei, as you know, we have to respond to client needs instantly. But I would say, as soon as I came back to China, the whole pace of life has become much faster. It's not really one level; it's two, 3 levels faster. If you know what I'm saying. So that's one thing. And in the UK, and I was working in London as well at the time. We deal with numbers, and at that time, after I left Ernst Young, joining Grant Thornton, the clients that we deal with, obviously, uh, relatively speaking, they are smaller size, right? Maybe we deal with £1 million or sometimes £1 billion, £1 billion kind of size of business. For any UK firm, it's a big client. But when you come to China, what shocked me was that everything was huge. Everything was huge in numbers. So to me, it was really exciting. And China itself is a huge market. And when I first came back to work in Shanghai, I mean, comparing to Shanghai right now, I would say it is completely different in terms of culture, in terms of the expectation of professionals of professional firms, what they offer. I would say 10, 12 years ago, they didn't really expect too much from firms like us. We tell them things and they would say, okay, well, that's it. We'll pay you a fee and then agree whatever. You deliver whatever, we don't really care. But I think our clientele has learned a lot, and there was a steep learning curve because they've caught up with international standards in terms of compliance, in terms of what I perform, in terms of due diligence. They expect advisors to give them really high value adding advice and recommendation. So I would say the whole industry has changed as our country has grown during the past 10, 12 years, during the time when I've been here. So I hope I've answered your question. By the way,
Yeah,
just one more thing.
great. Yeah. Sorry, go on,
I'm
Kevin.
in a very dark place because I'm in my car, as you probably know. I just stopped at a very safe place so I can talk, but I should not leave my car.
We can see you well. That's fine. Actually, just building on that, we do have a live question here from Freda. Actually, if I pick up the second half of the question there, so why did you decide to go back home instead of staying in the UK in the first place? And then Weiwei, maybe you and I can answer the first part of the question after Kevin. Why did we actually decide to stay in the UK instead of going back home? So we'll come back to that. So Kevin, you first.
Great question. I really like that question because I think I actually wanted to share why and how I got back to China. Now, first of all, let's wind the clock back. When I was working in the UK, after I've joined Grant Thornton, in addition to working very hard and performing at amongst the elite of our firm, I would say, I'm not boasting myself, but I didn't really work hard and gave my all to my career at that time. And I was also a very keen sportsman when I was back in London. So I was also a keen golfer and a capable golfer, playing golf with the bosses. Even though I was not even a manager level, I was a senior associate, right? So I got I was in charge of our London golf competition, which was held annually. I don't know whether it still is right now at GTUK, right? So I've been taking that responsibility outside of my work, out of my busy schedule, because I wanted to give to my career. I wanted to give to this firm. I wanted to do more. So I earned a chance to play golf with some big bosses at the time. And I can remember one day when I had a chance to talk to the big boss, big partner, his senior partner. He asked me, what do you want to do, in a few years' time? I said, well, one of these days I will have to think about going back to China because back in the early 2000s, after China has joined the WTO, our country was evolving very quickly. And there was a lot of investment there, a lot of growth there. And as a matter of fact, when I was working for GT in the UK, I was actually sent to the Far East, to China, to Singapore, to India to perform work in this place. And I learned a lot, and I was exposed to kind of this fast-moving, vibrant environment. So I was really interested in heading back in the 2007, 2006, that time. So the whole process, just because I made that remark, I was kind of helped by my boss at the time, and hence I had a chance to repatriate smoothly within the firm, well, within the network anyway, not exactly the same firm, but within the network, to switch from working in London to working in Shanghai. At the time, I was very lucky because our firm was investing heavily in developing the China practice. And I told you some figures earlier. So, cut a long story short, we had marched a long road over the past 12, 13 years.
So you had an opportunity presented to you, and you seized the opportunity, and then went.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah, I seized it like a bloodhound. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Thank you, Kevin. And Weiwei, so why did you decide to stay here?
To be honest, I never planned to stay. I remember when I went to like Pudong Airport when I first came to the UK, I told my parents, yeah, a year of master, I'll come back straight away. But then, because the master program is really short, it's a year program, just before you realize it, it's done. And I feel I still want to kind of experience living in Europe for a while. So I thought, let me try to find a job. And lucky enough, I got like graduate trainee program with PwC. Then once you started, I really enjoyed working here. I start having a lot of friends and mentors. And before you realize it, then London become home. And so here I am, 10 years later, still here.
Great. Well, I guess my story is quite similar to yours. I never intended to stay beyond. I guess, well, initially the first year, that was my fourth year at university. I thought I'll be back in '96 when I came in '95 and doing a year. But then, because it was sort of 9, 10 months and of the academic year, and I thought, oh no, I just do something else. So that's why I ended up in Bristol, and I really loved my experience in Bristol, and I wanted to stay on for a bit more, to kind of a bit longer, to experience the work culture and experience here as well. So that's why I decided to start applying for jobs. And in those days, it was actually super difficult. So there was no work permit given to any mainland Chinese. So I was on a training permit for 3 years to do the ACA. So the situation then was very, very different to where it is now. But and I enjoyed, I guess, PwC so much, and I just, London became home, as you said, and then also because the China Business Group I was then asked to set up and lead. I feel that actually sitting here in London, I get the best of both worlds, because I deal with China on a daily basis. I go back to China on a monthly basis, or used to anyway before this year. So I think that's kind of how it came about. I don't think, I was often asked the question also, given COVID now and a lot of things happening, Brexit, so would you consider going back home? That's a question I think a lot of Chinese are asking themselves this year. I don't think I've got any intention of doing one way or another. I think a bit like Kevin, I think when the opportunities present themselves, then I guess you make a decision then in terms of whether that was right for you at the time, and then you do what you think is the right thing to do. Maybe following on from that, we got another live question. Well, it's posed to me, but then I guess that's also maybe for Kevin and Weiwei as well. Do chip in if you got any observation around that. This is talking about many graduates joining PwC, or indeed any other firm, I suppose, any other big four firms or top accounting firms. They may leave after 3 years after graduation, or maybe a couple of years after that. Why do I think, what made them want to leave, and what kind of advice do I have for them? Maybe a couple of things I just want to point out. I guess the first thing to say is it's not unusual for people to leave after qualification, or 2-3 years after qualification. Actually, a lot of our UK colleagues do as well. And as as sort of senior management now of your respective firms, you would know that actually when we do the recruitment, we built in that in that factor into consideration. When we recruit the people in, we would expect a certain percentage of them leaving after qualification, because I guess that's just the way the industry operates. So I think that's just a sort of a natural progression. But then I do see people maybe sticking around for another 2-3 years, or sort of getting to manager level or senior manager level, and then seemingly hitting a bottleneck and then wanting to leave. And then that's also for a variety of different reasons. So I wouldn't want to comment on the individual reasons for why people want to leave, but then perhaps I can share my own experience on why I didn't. That's not to say I hadn't thought about it. I did at the time when I was a manager, because that's probably the 2.5 years I did as a manager is probably the hardest period I went through within PwC, because that's the period where I think you got the biggest responsibility, because you have many teams to manage downwards, but you also have to manage upwards, of your senior managers, your directors, the partners on the team, on various different teams, because I was running typically 3 to 4 audits at the same time at any particular part, one time during the year. And I was working day and night, weekends in the office. So I did think about leaving. And I did also actually go out and then did interviews. And it was really interesting, because I had a really senior partner as my mentor at the time. When I went to see him, and then he said, Suwei, go and do those interviews, it's fine. Because I thought he was going to stop me from doing it. But then he said, go and do those, but just promise me one thing. Whenever you had done an interview, come back and talk to me about it. So that's what I did. And every single time, I don't know what happened, and I will reflect on it in a minute, what I thought might happen. But every single time, after half an hour talking through with him on that interview, I talked myself out of it. He only asked questions. He didn't actually pose any of his own opinion on it. But what I then, over time, concluded was actually there is no better platform than a firm like PwC. I think similarly for other firms as well, to be able to experience such a wide variety of industry sectors, the issues that are facing our economy, our society, the world we live in, and then actually finding or collectively working with other teams to find solutions to them. There's no better place where you actually have or can enjoy such intellectual challenges from your colleagues, because you're surrounded by really smart people, and the people who want to work collaboratively, because I work with many clients in corporates. The kind of the structure they have, and then also the sort of caliber of people they recruit is nowhere near the sort of quality we have within the firm. And I have so many friends. I've built up such good network within the firm. So every single time, I think it sort of comes back to those points where I thought, actually, I'll just give it another go. I will persevere in the role I'm here at the moment. And I guess before you know it, the time has gone by. You've made progress in the firm, and I've now been a partner in the firm for 10 years. And it doesn't feel like that long at all. But and then even within the 10 years of me being a partner, I've done so many different things, as I alluded to earlier, and I continue to pick up new roles and new challenges, and I feel every day is a new day for me. That there is no day like any other day I've just lived. So I don't know whether Weiwei and Kevin, that's sort of similar to your experience as well.
I'm nodding, as you were talking. I mean, I can resemble a lot of the content that you just talked about, Suwei. To me, I mean, I'll just summarize very briefly, because I think you've summarized most of my inner thoughts already. I think in this industry, there really is a lot of variety, and you, as an advisor, you still, it doesn't matter what kind of projects you're dealing with. I think every time that I deal with a new project, I'm learning new things. And I talk to also a lot of people who work in other industries or work in corporates. Their exposure is nowhere near the exposure that we get in accounting firm. And we can have a lot of topics to talk about. And to those people, to my friends, I've always been an interesting guy, because I could talk a lot about what I've experienced from my career, from my work, from the M&A projects that I've been dealing with, obviously. Observing the confidentiality clauses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you make a lot of friends in the industry, right? I think where you could echo that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with Kevin too, and what you said. And I guess, it's all different personal reasons why certain people left after the training contract. But from like the junior people I coach, I think one of the common reasons is they feel in the first 3 years they stuck in the training contract that's quite like get to that point by the year 3 is they want something new. But my point is exactly to what Kevin and Suwei says is start build a network at the early stage of your career and really explore that, because there's literally everything a corporate can offer in an accounting firm like this. It's just a matter of finding the right team and finding out what you want to do and make that connection and make that move. But you can literally do all the different things. I think for all of us three, we have done so many things in our career. So don't be afraid to feel, oh, I'm stuck in this team, in this role after 3 years, but go explore and embrace that variety within the firm.
Great, thank you. And then we've got another question here as well. Have we ever experienced anything difficult but interesting in our career? So, Kevin, should we start with you? Anything difficult but interesting?
Yeah, I would think that's a good question, but just to reiterate what you and I have, and also where we have shared about our careers, about our jobs in an accounting firm. Every day we meet different people, we take on new projects, and these are interesting yet challenging. To me, every day I have to deal with issues, problems. Sometimes a good problem would be as a great job, great project dealing with one of the most famous or up and coming entrepreneurial business, in China. You get to know them and you learn about how the key factors driving the growth, right? But also the other side of the coin is that how are you going to do it within the time frame that your client has set for you? For example, within 5 days, you got to give me a key issue, but then you got to think, do I have readily available professional staff? That to me is already a good problem, but that kind of problem, it's already a big challenge in my daily life. I have to deal with resource planning and managing my clients' expectation, as well as dealing with the target's expectation as well, because we have to agree a timetable with them and to visit their offices, the premises, and ask them to provide the necessary information. Along my so far next year will be my 20th anniversary of starting my career, but along my 19 years of career, there's been a lot of very interesting and very memorable experiences. I really cannot spend 2 minutes just summarizing it, but yeah. So that's my quick answer to a very interesting and very meaningful question.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Weiwei?
I think it would be quite similar along the line what Kevin says. I think it's a constant steep learning curve because you're always picking up new things, and especially the team I'm leading is in like fast growth tech area. You're constantly get into this new technology trends, and now we're talking about deep tech. This is things that you just need to pick up really quickly. It's exciting, but you feel like every now and then you're still out of your comfort zone. I was walking to a client meeting about personalized nutrition and genomic data, and before that, I did like the whole night of study just to. Obviously, we're talking about the consulting service and the more general side of the advice, but still you want to walk into that meeting knowing the subject matter. Obviously, not as good as a bioscientist, but you still want to show your client the area they operate in. So every day, there's a meeting coming in, there's a project coming in, you still feel you need to learn a lot, which is exciting but also challenging.
Yeah. Great. I think I agree with both of you on everything you just said. Maybe just sort of one thing to add on there. I think actually some of the most difficult things that I've done is probably in the first instance is overcome your own fear and the lack of confidence in picking up something new. Kevin, you've done great things, sort of, going back to China. I think, applaud you for that, because it's not really a decision that's lightly made. It's a very different environment. I've come across many friends of mine who really worry about making that decision, as an example, and then looking back at my own experience, when I was asked by the firm to set up the group, it was a very risky thing to do because nobody else has done it before, setting up something that's crossed the service lines within the firm and cross sectors. And you're also sort of going to a no man's land because nobody knew what kind of model that would look like. I was very much on track within audit to be on, sort of the partner pathway. And a lot of people persuaded me or tried to persuade me not to take it up, to say, why bother? Because you are one of our high flyers in the business unit here. You give it another 3 years or whatever, you will be there. And if you took up something that's completely new, that's completely unknown thing to do. But what I learned, I think, throughout those experiences is you kind of need to, for me, first and foremost, is play to your strengths, but also enjoy what you do. And if I didn't wake up every day and enjoying what I do, then I think it's such a bore, and you wouldn't stay long. Going back to the earlier question, you wouldn't then stay long in your job at all. So yeah, no, completely agree with what you just said. Maybe just sort of changing tact a little bit. I have a great question here, actually going the other way around. So this is from Angus, asking about being a UK national and then also having worked in the past year in Taiwan with a decent level of Mandarin, and then wondering, he was just wondering what kind of possibilities there might be with our respective firms' operation in China, considering recruiting foreign nationals, and actually valuing the language skills that those people can bring, and an international experience as well. So any advice on that front? Kevin?
Yeah, I would say having language skills, I would say, yeah, it's a plus. But to me, if I were to consider hiring a foreign national to work in China, in our China practice, in Grand Mountain, China, right? In fact, we do have these people. We do have Americans. We used to have a Greek person who spoke fluent Chinese, absolutely fluent Chinese. We have a few Americans who are fluent Chinese and who could read and write as well. But then I would say language is important, but one can learn the languages. It's not a plus. But I would say to consider a career in China, nowadays, number one, is getting more difficult. But I'll tell you what are the key factors that we look for, right? It's the specialist skills, right? For example, in today's China market, I'm sure I could speak on behalf of most accounting firms, because I would say PwC is not short of talent in the PRC. But you want to stand out and have a better chance of applying for a job which could add value to local businesses. You need to have specialist skills such as consulting. It could be international tax. It could be operational kind of advice. If you've run a factory or run a business before, in an accounting firm, we have got many angles to give advice to a client. Language is important, but I would say what's more important is an understanding about China, and it's about today's China, not past China. Our history would help you to build a picture about today's China. But China is changing so rapidly. I think, Stu, you used to come back on a monthly basis, you would notice.
Yeah.
We are in a really fast-moving environment, and it's not just Shanghai, it's throughout. The technology that we adopt with the support from Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu, it's just a different world right here compared to when I first came to work full-time in 2008. Yeah. So I would say it's about building a knowledge. It's about building a knowledge about today's China and understand where we are going. And you may ask, how do I know where your country is going? But principally policy driven.
Kevin, you're breaking up a little bit.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, so I was going to say it's about building an understanding about China. One may ask, how are you going to build up that understanding? I would say you've got to know that our economy is a policy-driven economy. It's yet a market economy, but it's also a policy-driven economy. So understanding the, to what extent our government is directing our economy and directing the policies which stimulate the economy, that itself is very important. Yeah.
So maybe just building on what Kevin was saying there, and Angus, coming back to your question, I actually think a better route, and then this is also tried and tested by many people like you and in your shoes, and we may echo this, but at least I can talk from a PwC perspective. We've got actually quite a lot of people like you who has a passion for China and has a passion for the Chinese language, and having actually joined our UK firm and worked their way up here, or accumulated their work experience in the UK environment, and then leveraging our global mobility program then to sort of find the opportunity to go back and go to China and work there. So that might be another route. And I have about 20-30 people in my immediate team who are like you, who are British but learned Chinese. And even in my own immediate team, I have a team member who lived in China for 6 years, sort of studying and teaching there, and taught herself Chinese while she was there. She's already on the level 6 on the Chinese exam system. I forgot the actual name for it, but she's now working in my team, and she uses her Chinese day in, day out. So I think that might be another way of looking at the problem here in hand. But your second part of the question, just very quickly, I do believe if you wanted to apply for the CICPA qualification locally, I think you do have to have the either the nationality, or there is a specific qualification you have to gain before you get to that point. Okay, so I'm just sort of looking, there's lots of questions coming through. Maybe we'll sort of move to the graduate end of the spectrum for a minute, just sort of change tack slightly. And there are questions here around, do we need to have maths or financial background before we enter the industry? Well, my personal experience is no. So I think Kevin and Weiwei are shaking their heads. We recruit students from all sorts of different backgrounds. I have colleagues and team members who studied music, history, geography, so all kinds of different things. So don't let that stop you from applying if that's what you are interested in doing. And then we also, sorry, I'm just, there's loads of questions here. Okay, so also there's a student, there's a question around getting, if we join PwC, whether you can study for ACCA rather than ACA. I think different firms will probably have very different rules around that. But within PwC, if you join the graduate scheme, the default position is you would study for ACA. But then we do have students who came in who already did self-study at university for certain modules of ACCA. And sometimes if they do want to pursue ACCA on an exceptional basis, they needed sort of approval around that, then they can continue to do that. But then most students then use the module they've already studied to kind of contribute towards credits towards ACA rather than using or continue to study ACCA. I see nods from Kevin and Weiwei. I think you agree with me, so I won't go to you on those.
It's fine.
Okay, all right. And then there's also a question here. So from Yun Yao, well, congratulations. I think you said you got 2 offers from PwC China and the EY China. So yeah, well, you have to pick one or the other. And then, so are there any chances in the future to work in Europe even for a few months? And what difference do we think that working in different countries? Okay. So I'll let Weiwei to comment on the EY policy, but in PwC, yeah, we have a very well-established global mobility program. So we have many people who move around between countries and to seek cycle of experience, as we call them. This could range from maybe a few weeks on projects all the way to sort of a 2 to 3 year more established program. So 2 years is the sort of the norm there, and then you can choose to go to Europe or US or Australia. So there is no kind of restrictions around that, but it needs the firm you're working for and also the other network firm to agree the role you're going to play in those, the destination territory, or receiving territory, if I can put it that way. But then the possibilities are there. So Weiwei, I think, I'll leave you to comment on the UI policy.
Yeah, same here for EY, very established global mobility program. You choose the country you would like to explore, and obviously agreement in place, but the program range between 3 months to 2 years. And I do know people like colleagues, after 2 years, they even extended for another further year, and some of them lead to permanent transfer to the UK, actually, from a Shanghai firm. So yeah, this is all well established within the firm.
Okay, great, thank you. And there are a few questions I'm going to group here around actual sort of recruitment process, and then mainly around what's our experience. Are there any tips in terms of going through those recruitment processes? And then also there's one question here. Say, oh, please share your secret of speaking English so fluently. I'll start with you this time. And any tips from our graduates in terms of going through, the accounting firm's recruitment process?
I suppose, yeah, it depends on what kind of stage we're talking about. But I remember, especially, I saw, yeah, there's an earlier question about assessment center, how to stand out from assessment center. I would say, don't be afraid to speak out and have a view. As a looking for a graduate job, we're not expecting you to have a perfect answer, that the business so well, that you're so commercially acute. It's more you're not afraid to have a view, and then you also have reason to support your view, and that's well enough. So I sit in assessment center myself as a panelist, and I saw a lot of students, they write a lot on the paper thinking about what should I say, did I find the perfect solution, or did I have the best answer. I guess just don't be afraid to speak out. That's already like a good step in. And in terms of interviews, a lot of questions now are scenario based. So I suppose don't give a long story. I guess it's one of my tips that I find useful is like make it very clear and stick with the situation, what's challenging and what is your task, your role in that. What action did you take and what's the results? And when it comes to results, numbers always help. I led a team of 3. We achieved this percentage of increase in efficiency or whatever the KPIs, and just tell that concise and clear story always help in scenario based questions.
Great.
So I'll stop there. That's my top 2 tips.
Kevin, any tips?
I would say, yeah, just one more tip, because I also interview a lot of graduates nowadays, or for the past few years. I encourage the applicants to study more about the firm that they're applying for. It doesn't matter whether it's a Big 4, PwC, Ernst & Young. When I applied for a job at Ernst & Young, actually I also applied for a job at PwC in the UK, and it was successful as well. I made a lot of research about what they do, what are the recent cases that that they've been dealing with. You can read this through from the FT or from the internet nowadays. It's very easy. So be prepared and show interest about the firms that you're applying for. To me, that's a plus. But despite sounds being very easy, many people don't know much about the firms that they're applying to. So that disappoints me a lot when I interview. So that's my little tip.
Great. No, I think I would echo all of your viewpoints. Maybe just one more to add. And actually, that's trying to be yourself in the interview. I do too many partner interviews, whereby actually I remember one very distinctive one. I remember it was a few years back. I interviewed a Cambridge graduate Chinese student, and she came through with flying colors every single step of the way. But then when we got to the partner interview as the last stage, every question I threw at her, including the scenario-based question where we just talked about, I had textbook answers back. So stop reading those, sort of how to prepare for interview books. I had to stop her halfway through that hour. And I said to her, well, you have to start be yourself, because otherwise I can't score you, and I have to say no because I've not seen the real you. Unfortunately for her, I think she wasn't able to kind of reverse the gear and then start being herself and stop being somebody else. And I had to say no in the end. It was a real shame. And I think that for me is also one of the very important factors. And then talking about the English language, I think there's no shortcut. Just sort of practice and practice and then. But I would say don't let that stop you from doing what you need to do. Because I have many colleagues, non-Chinese as well as Chinese, especially the non-Chinese ones. There are a lot of European colleagues. They have really strong accents. Their English are not perfect, but they have really strong ideas, and then they would bring those ideas forward, as Weiwei was talking about earlier, and then they contribute. And I don't think the language really stopped them from doing what they needed to do to create value for our clients and the firm. So yeah, although speaking the language properly and like the Brits do, probably will help a little bit, but I wouldn't let that stop you from doing the right things. Okay. We also then have a question here. Okay, people say that the first job experience is really important. So in your mind, do you think it's important we start from one of the top companies as a starting point? What's your advice on that? Weiwei?
Well,
oh, Kevin, yeah.
I started my career with a big firm, and I appreciated that. But then I left E&Y, at that time called E&Y, now called EY, right? And joined GT. I think from my understanding about the industry, in fact, first job is very important. You got to learn the tricks right. You got to have the right habits of filing, the admin, the audit procedures. You got to follow strictly. You got to understand why there's planning in advance of any projects. I'm sure Suwei, as an audit partner, you would agree with me. So I think being a professional, it's a long process, and every step you got to do what's appropriate. You got to learn. You can't jump. You got to learn how to walk before you can run, and then you can jump. Right now, there's a difference between working for a big four and non-big four, I would say. And I would say when you look for a job, be open to find out about the culture that is shared. To be honest, if I didn't think Grant Thunder would share a similar culture or values as I personally do, I wouldn't have thrived with the firm for so long. I've been working for Grant Thunder for over 16 years. Okay, so it's not a big four, but it's a great firm, great bunch of people, and it shares similar values that I have in my life. And any firm with a positive spiel and a very established corporate values, I would say that would help any person, any graduates starting their career very much, and that kind of value would stay as they grow, and it's very impactful. I would say.
Weiwei, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I agree with what Kevin says, like skills that you can from your first job, like attention to details, take ownership, communication skills, care for people. It goes with you to whichever firm after your first job. And also I'm kind of believer of it's a lifelong game. It's a marathon. It doesn't matter whether you start your career in a smaller firm or not. I've had my very senior partner start his first job in a very small firm, and then because he's good at what he does and he has something strong to bring to the table, he's a sector expertise, and he joined EY as a senior manager, and then within 5 years become a partner. So I mean, it's more the skills you get from your first job, and get trained well and keep those key qualities and be good at what you do. And then it's just personal choice, right? Smaller firms have more family culture sometimes, and bigger firms have bigger platform. It's those key skills that goes with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to echo that as well. I think as a firm, we celebrate diversity of people we bring into the firm, because our clients are diversified. So we have quite a lot of people, say for example, working in our family business team, and then small private enterprises team who actually do not come from the Big Four environment, and then some of them actually come from industry. We also have a lot of people now, coming from the sort of technology background. We recruit directly for those people now as well. So I don't think, yeah, maybe it is important for the reasons I think Kevin and Weiwei outlined earlier. But then equally, I think other skill sets are important too to bring into the firm. So yeah, okay. Right, we've only got a couple of more minutes left. Let me maybe just do this very quickly on some of these questions. If you missed out on a graduate scheme with one of the firms, are there any alternative ways? Yeah, we do experience hires as well. I'll probably speak on behalf of Weiwei and Kevin. So we have other types of program that you can apply for, and even maybe go and work somewhere else and then come back. As I said earlier, I think there are obviously other ways of doing it, not necessarily just through the graduate recruitment scheme or the internship. And then there's a question here about working in the UK for several years, maybe in PwC, for example, then want to start career back in China. Could I still be in the position and the work in PwC without applying new position? So our global mobility program would take into consideration in terms of your experience in any particular country, and that will ensure there is a continuity of your career path when you move to other countries, be it China or somewhere else. So that's the other question we've got here. Yeah, perhaps just the last question then we'll pick up. Slightly different question. What do you like to do while not working? What are your thoughts on work-life balance? So you have 30 seconds each to answer that question.
I'll go first then.
Okay, you
I've
go
got
first,
kids.
Kevin.
I got kids, so on the weekend it's about taking them to different classes, to play tennis and have a meal together. I mean, I travel a lot during the weekday. As you can see, I'm in my car right now. Yeah, I try to spend much time with the family. And my favorite pastime, and the way that the sport which brought me back to China with the help of a senior partner, was golf. So I'm a really avid golfer myself. So that's myself.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Weiwei?
Right, 30 seconds. I'm a keen traveler. I paint. I do oil painting a lot on weekends, and I'm a massive wine lover. I'm a certified wine educator.
Wow.
I love wine too.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah,
I can't say because I don't actually drink alcohol, so I can't really claim that I know that much about wine. Yeah, well, like Kevin, I have two children, so weekends is really around them, but they do a lot of music, so I naturally sort of follow their interests. But I also do quite a lot of exercise as well. So no matter how busy I am, I have to ensure that I do a minimum an hour exercise every day just to sort of clear my head. I will try to think about, sometimes I multitask, so I'll think about work and actually getting my thoughts in line while I'm exercising. And then I travel a lot as well as you do, Kevin. Or before COVID, I do quite a lot of traveling. I love it because I think you get to know quite a lot of people. But I was also always asked the question, being a working mom, what's your thoughts on work-life balance? I never really draw a distinction between the two because I think that's a personal choice. A lot of my colleagues do. They will say, well, work is work, life is life. So when I leave the office and that's it. I do the opposite. I manage both things as one project. So I really mix the two, and I enjoy mixing the two because I can be leaving the office at 3:30 if the kids had something that I needed to go to, but then I can pick up work later on, and that's perfectly normal for me. I guess that's really down to individuals to decide on. Okay, so I think we've actually run out of time. Well, let me first thank Weiwei and Kevin for your time today, and also thank all the participants for your great questions. We haven't got to every single one of them, so let me just remind you, if we didn't manage to cover your questions, please do email us again, and we will get back to you through email. And also the recording will be circulated after the event today as well. And then also just to remember that the career service here at the university can support you up to 3 years after graduation. So, you can look at their website for further information, or if you got any questions, please do get in touch with the email address I gave earlier. I think it's alumni-events@bristol.ac.uk. And thank you very much all for attending, and have a good afternoon and a morning or a good day, wherever you are.
Thank you all,
Thank you.
and thanks,
Thank you.
Suwei, for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Kevin. Bye.